so are not encouraged to go to schools, and we must compel them to do so. I give the floor now to the third vice president. Coordinator is recalling that there are two additional themes which are complementary with the first presentation, and you will have to ask as many questions as you want. So let us end these questions. This series of questions. Timing is very important. So, honorables, I would like to give the floor to everybody, but we must understand that the presentations are complimentary. Hanifa, please.
President, I want to thank the presenter, Dr. Rita, and I want to acknowledge that the subject at hand is very important, the reason that all members want to contribute. Madam Vice President, I want to start with the question that Dr. Rita posed, whether there is an urgency to have specific legal framework on a girl child access to education and sustainability retention in the school. The answer is yes, there is an immediate urgency. Why? To address the challenges that we are facing in implementation of the current instruments there that we have now. Madam Chair, it's no doubt that when you educate a girl, you educate a nation. But I wanted us to look at the bottlenecks, why of retaining girls in school. I agree with the honorable member who said when you see at the enrollment in the primary, the ratio of a girl to a boy is high. But when it moves on to the secondary and the high institutions, it drops out. Why? We should look at the setup of our institutions as well as the curriculum vitae that we have in our schools. I know most of the constitutions, they have the advancement of girl child in school. In Uganda, we have 1.5% education to all, primary, universal education, and higher education. But all these are not enough unless we have a framework in place. What are the usual causes or the challenges we have to have the advancement of these girls? Let's be practical, Madam Chair. Let all of us look where we came from to attain where we are today. It's the mother. And when we are saying portfolios, every illiterate, we have seen 2/3 of the women are illiterate. But you go, all portfolios in our homes are held by the women, other than that of the presidency. That's what the men retained. That the presidents of our homes, that the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Environment, the Minister of Education, name it, it is a woman, this literate woman. So why are we talking about at this age? The necessity is there, but how do we reach there? When you go to our school structures, rural school structures, what is the environment? Are they conducive for a girl child to remain in school? Are there sanitary pads in those schools? Is there stigmatization? So all of this, we must look at them. And because of time, because this is the subject that really is pertinent to us, when we are talking about empowerment, we are looking at empowerment of us who are here. But how about those rural women of ours? Access to land, access to economic, access, we are talking of Gender 2063. So I think we need more time, Madam Vice, so that we come out, as the first Vice President said, to look at what did we come with? What is it there that we need to have implemented? We go back to our countries, different countries, because we have done all the best. The problem is at implementation level. I thank you.
Merci, honorable.
I thank you, Honorable Hanifa. Madam, the third Vice President, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would also like to congratulate Dr. Rita, the coordinator of this program, for her excellent presentation. I would like to express some ideas. Some of them have been already expressed. I would like to talk about the experience in my country related to the girls. I think that to guarantee an education for the girls, because we know that all over the world, not only in Africa, but all over the world, education, when it's related to young boys, is less problematic, less complicated compared to the girls, because lots of countries, for traditions or cultural issues and the religious excuse, because no religion prohibits or bans the education of girls. With all these obstacles that we have in our respective countries, the education of girls is sometimes more complicated, but we have to create conditions. In our experience in Western Sahara, as my colleague said before, one of the main guarantees is the education, the free education for all girls, and the compulsory education for all of them, and also to work with the self-esteem and empowerment of women and girls in particular. In our case, in this point in particular, we have schools all over the regions which we work on a daily basis the self-esteem of all women and girls to guarantee their future. Also, we have created laws that make girls or bans girls from early marriage. Without those laws, we cannot make any improvement. In Western Sahara, we have laws that ban all of these marriages before the 18 years. And with all these practices, we have them girls starting to get married at later ages. We have seen the importance of getting married at an age that which can guarantee her education and to sensitize them to complete their studies and create a better future for them and for their families. We know that the girls should study and have better access more than men, because men can find job anywhere which women for natural reason cannot do for pregnancy and other reasons, and also create schools for professional works for all of those girls who cannot continue their studies could accede to these schools. And in Western Sahara also, and it has been done to all levels, we have schools of professional studies for all those girls who have not had any opportunity to continue their studies, to do it in those special schools. This is what I had to say. Thank you very much.
Merci, Honorable.
I thank you, Honorable. I do apologize to all honorable members who haven't been able to take the floor, but if you look at the theme, there are other presentations. Spanish, is it coming through? This is just to tell you that you will have enough time to ask your questions. I do apologize once again. We are behind time, 30 minutes behind time. So I will end it here and give the floor to Dr. Rita in order to provide us with some answers, and then we'll have a coffee break, come back to the chamber. I would like the coffee break to be very short in order for you to have enough time to ask your questions. I thank you. To you, Dr. Rita. I thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Thank you very much for all the questions, for all the comments, and I am very pleased to see all the enthusiasm that has been elicited by this meeting amongst you, and I think that this is very good for the future of our girls in Africa. I think that it is important, first of all, to know that education is an extremely broad theme. We cannot discuss everything here, and I think that we need several days. This is why we thought that we should have only one specific theme which would focus on the legal aspect for girls' education, because if we get into all details, such as, for example, curricula and other aspects, I think it will be very complicated because these are two lengthy debates which will require a lot of time. But we must know that vocational training is very important, and we in CFI are quite aware that there is a great number of girls who are not part of, who have dropped from schools or left schools, and that there is need to do something for them. And I think that it is important to look at vocational training as not as something which is not part of that is part of education, because in most countries we see vocational training for girls and boys who have not been able to succeed in the normal system, and we see it as something specific. I think we in the African Union are trying to see to it that vocational training becomes part and parcel of the normal education system, meaning that it should be incorporated and not seen as a separate structure, and think it is because my child has not been successful in school that he must or she must be directed to vocational training. And we are here in order to discuss all the different laws that exist at all levels on education, on access for education and the prevention of girls, and also the disabled children. I will not take the risk of answering that. I will leave it to Dr. Ruth, but we must, as Dr. Ruth will present that, we have a law which refers to education in general, but doesn't make reference to specific instruments which talk to girls' education. Let me now switch to English.
To give a copy of the high-level dialogue. We shall do this. We shall make copies available, so you might not get them today, but you might get them during the week. We had a high-level dialogue with our different ministers of education and gender in January during our African Union summits. You do know that we have two sessions of African Union summits per year, one in January and one in July, or June or July. And during each of our summits, the African Union CIEFFA, we have one session on gender equality and education. So we had a high-level dialogue, and I think, as Dr. Lahai mentioned, the recommendations would be very interesting for you to have a look at them. I think something very important that I want to share with you is that you might not know, many people are talking about education for all, or talking about the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, but I think it is very important for you to note that with education for all and the MDGs, Africa was only limited to primary education. And many of you have stressed the importance that we need to go beyond primary education. And of course, we need to go beyond primary education. We cannot be left with only primary education. Do you know that the World Bank, at some point in time, had a strategy for Africa which only mentioned primary education? That was about 20 years ago. And at the African Union, we have struggled to ensure that in the sustainable development goals that have just been that are now in place and that many of you have mentioned, we are now talking of secondary education and we are talking of higher education. And it is very important for us to remember that Africa needs to go beyond this primary education, and our Agenda 2063 stresses this point about going beyond primary education, because if we want women leaders, if we want the empowerment of our women, it has to go through secondary education and higher education. So I think this is something that I really wanted to talk to you about. Now, about the different documents which exist, we have come here with one document on case studies on best practices of what exists in girls and women's education. We are now having a document, a report which will be coming out on gender-sensitive teaching and learning environments. This report is not ready yet. But we also have documents about the legal aspects, which we can send to you by emails. Those documents are very big. We did not print them out, but we can, if you're interested, we can send you out the compendium and the big document, which is about over 100 pages of the monitoring of the implementation of legal frameworks in our countries. And there are many examples of what exists. But we didn't print out those documents. But what we did print out is like a brief policy brief of those legal instruments. Just trying to see if I responded to all your questions. Maybe I haven't talked about this, but as I said, today we are only taking one aspect of girls and women's education. We cannot take them all. As I said, we will be having a meeting in about 2 months where we'll be talking more about gender teaching and about gender-sensitive teaching and learning environments, more about women in STEM and women in TVET. So maybe I would like to conclude here, but we'll have more time to discuss further. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Rude.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruth. And I think you've, in fact, had answers to your questions, and I'm very sure that this theme of education for girls and women are very important for all our countries, and I do thank you very much for what everybody had to say. But please do make your coffee break as short as possible. Please be as quick as possible so that we can actually continue being able to discuss. I would like to thank everybody who has been working, in fact, backstage, in fact, to prepare this meeting. Thank you very, very much. And I would also like to thank you all here. I would like to give the floor to the third Vice President, who will continue, in fact, to lead the session. Thank you very much.